the name of our show.
We're muted. Hi, welcome to the Large Glass. We were muted. She's pointing at the microphone. She's like, I think we're muted.
I think we're muted.
I'm like, we're not muted.
There we go.
How is everybody tonight? It's good to see you. Amanda, thank you for re-upping your subscription. We just saw that happened. You are awesome.
Thank you.
So thanks for that.
Yes.
So the loyal followers.
The loyal followers.
We love you guys.
Yep, truly.
So you might have noticed we have a new surround on the screen, which is different from the old one.
Todd loves this one. He's been talking about it, how sleek it is.
I didn't use the word sleek.
Sleek.
But we were having so many problems with the old system, as most of you know, and who have, gotten through this.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Pumpkin Audrey and Dave. Good to see you. I figured out what happened, I think. So if we crash tonight, I was wrong, but I think I got it. Yeah. So that's good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Snowstorm's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big one.
A big one.
I'm excited.
I'm a little bit excited. I was more excited when I was young and didn't have to, drive in it. But these days, that's what I think about when I think of a snowstorm.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as fun as it used to be, but that's okay.
I'm looking forward to playing a little bit.
Yeah. Carolyn is here. Hey,
Hi, Carolyn. How are you? Nice to see you. We're just talking about tomorrow's big snowstorm coming. Snowstorm. Hope you're ready.
And it's starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way into Thursday.
All the way into Thursday morning.
Yeah.
It's going to be a whopper.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. There's Mom. Hi, Mom. There's Dave. Good. The room's filling up. We like that.
Yeah.
We like that. So we've got some interesting stuff to talk about tonight.
We do. We're kind of tacking on to some trends, but that's art sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we've got other business to cover before we get there.
We do. We have quite a lot of business.
Quite a bit. So I have to say one thing is I wanted to give a shout out to our new manager of social media and publicity, Andrew Sciallo. Last week I mispronounced his last name and I was embarrassed about that. So I wanted to just kind of
correct it,
fix that, because I that means a lot to me. I don't like saying people's names wrong. Carolyn says 18 to 20. Yeah, 18 to 20.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
I'm ready.
We'll see.
I'm going to get out the sled.
Okay.
I'm going to be that guy going down the hill with a bottle of wine.
There you go.
Yay!
That's awesome.
So Andrew, you're doing great. Thank you. We're doing some new things with him, and you might notice that we have a new Instagram for the Large Glass, which is on the screen right over. How do I make this work? There. This is really hard to line up, but right there.
Yeah.
It's _Large Glass, one word.
We have a TikTok too, but we don't have that up there.
We don't have our TikTok up there.
And we should.
Well, we're trying to get more TikToks.
Yes, before we...
So he's informed us, Andrew, I don't know if you're watching right now, but Andrew has informed us that we might have to do, Terry and I might have to do some TikTok trends where we actually dance.
And sing. And all that.
And so
good stuff.
I don't know. I guess I'm down, but
yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
So thank you to Andrew. We've got our new Instagram up there. What else? Normal ways to support us. If you're here and you haven't followed, give a follow. Mm-hmm. We got lots of subscribers. And on the note of subscribers, like we tell you every week, we are trying to get to 10 subscribers. 10. And we have a piece of art to give away. Now, Glenn has told us, he texted me the other night and he's like, did you give away that piece of art yet? And my first question was, well, you'd know if you were watching. He's not watching because his computer's completely on the blink and he can't seem to connect. But he might be giving us a second one. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about that. We might have 2.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Of them.
I was not aware that was happening.
Yeah, so that's exciting. But if we get to 10 subs, we will be giving away a piece of Glenn Lavertue's art.
Yeah.
And so I'll show that in a little bit, but it's a limited edition cast piece in urethane resin, which is, beautiful. And there's only 6 in this edition, so it's pretty limited. So there's that, and we've shown it in the past, and we'll show it again.
Okay.
So let's see. What should we do? Should we start?
Yeah, we can get started.
We got to pour our wine.
We have to pour our wine.
All right, so we already poured our wine.
We did. We have to pregame a little bit.
We do.
You know.
We have to loosen up a little bit. So tonight we are drinking. Dave, thanks for the wine, pal. Tonight we're drinking the bottle of wine that Dave brought over yesterday because we had wine and we didn't just get to this one. So thanks to Dave Schmidt for tonight's Francis Coppola Malbec, which is from California. And the reason we pulled this off the shelf and not the Côte de Rhône that I really wanted to pull off is the Côte de Rhône is from France. And what we're talking about tonight somewhat resides.
One of them resides
in California. So California it is. And we have a little Malbec. So let's, you want to do a little
Sure.
A little ASMR for you? Hold on. Let's turn up the gain. Here we go. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm going to turn that gain down or I'm going to blow everybody's eardrums out. So here's to tonight. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hope you guys have something nice and warm on this cold night to drink.
Yes.
Not too shabby.
No, it's yummy. Actually, when you pulled it out, it reminded me of being in the liquor store this weekend and going up to the counter and buying our
I forgot about that.
beverages. And then there was this really nice young man behind the counter who was very good with the impulse sale.
We were checking out and we had a couple of bottles of wine on the counter and this young man very
Suave.
and what's wrong with that? France, I mean. No, nothing's wrong with France, but we don't have a French artist tonight, Carolyn. We're
we're stretching here.
And even this is a stretch, but France would have been an even bigger stretch.
Yeah.
So because I think California is certainly a lot closer to Utah than France is to Romania.
It definitely is.
So no contest.
But there was one in California too.
There was.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story. This young man behind the counter in the liquor store picks up a bottle of eggnog, spiked eggnog, and he holds it over his arm like this, and he's like, "Would you consider a purchase of one of these tonight?"
Yes, and the way he lifted his eyebrow and everything, kind of irresistible. So we went home with some eggnog.
But at first, Terry was resistant, and I was like, "Terry, he's trying to make a sale."
A sale, yeah.
So he appreciated being helped out. Yeah. Carolyn says, "Shall I provide you a list of artists?" Yes.
Yes, sure.
I would happily take that because we often will take suggestions. So I'd love to see who you can offer up. So email away. We'll definitely take a look. Mm-hmm. All right. So we have our wine.
We have our wine.
We have our pre-game business taken care of.
We do.
Is there anything else to talk about?
Not a whole lot. We had a good show last week.
Last week's show was awesome.
Yeah. It really was.
I felt really good about last week's show. That Blaschka flower collection that we talked about up at Harvard, which was just, I think dynamite. Definitely worth going to see.
Yeah.
And when all this is over, Amanda had a suggestion that we have seriously been thinking about on several levels. So number one, she was saying that perhaps when the time is right and we can all get together, we charter a vehicle to go. Hi, Amanda. I don't know if you heard. Oh, Mom says last week was amazing. Carolyn Thau says, I'm part Romanian too. Oh, great. Then this.
Well, that's good. Then this show is for you.
We're hitting all your check boxes, Carolyn. Amanda, thank you for re-upping the subscription. I don't know if you heard us say that at the beginning of the show, but since you're just chiming in now, and thank you for last week's suggestion for chartering a vehicle of some sort so we can all go up to Boston, to Cambridge, to see the Blaschka flower collection and the Museum of Natural History and possibly the MIT Museum. And road trip, exactly. So we're excited about that, and we're going to try and pull that off. I don't know how big the vehicle will be.
Yeah.
We're either going in a Volkswagen Beetle or we're going in a charter bus.
In a charter bus. Who knows? Who knows?
All right, good.
Anything can happen.
Good. Amanda says, I love a road trip. Yeah, I do too. And I feel like I haven't taken one in forever. So
No. Yeah.
we'll get to it.
We will.
We're definitely going to get to it. All right. So, and by the way, we can't say too much about it, but today is December 15th. That makes next week's show the 22nd, and the week after that, the 29th. We have an awesome surprise for you on the 29th. An awesome surprise. Like you're going to just, like your head's going to come off. So that one we're really excited about. We have a good show picked out for next week.
Yeah, we have a really good show picked out for next week.
Let's talk about that at the end.
Okay, we can do that.
All right. So why don't we pop over and talk about, well, we'll talk about Glenn really
Yeah,
quickly. We'll
let's
do a
talk
little
about
Glenn
Glenn.
introduction. And you see on the screen that it says tonight, Monoliths.
You know, it almost has that sensational, Inquirer kind of opening.
It's a really powerful word.
It is.
Monolith.
Monolith. This is monolithic. Okay.
Part of me wanted to play the Lisa Simpson monorail song from The Simpsons, but that just doesn't line up, even though that is just an absolutely fantastic episode. But we'll back away from that for a second because that reference doesn't need to come in here. But monoliths. Because lately, in the news, we have been seeing those popping up. Now, I don't know if everyone has seen this or not, but maybe we need to do a little background information. Let's talk about Glenn real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about
Glenn Lavertu. Glenn Lavertu is an emerging artist in New England. He was featured in New England Art New England magazine as one of the 10 emerging artists in New England. He has donated that piece of work to us that we're talking about, and he has a picture of it right here. This is called Angel of Death, Flintlock Mechanism and Plate 2020. It is part of a larger sculpture that he is making, which he decided to edition. It comes in both black and white. We have the white one. The black one is shown here. It is signed on the back and ready to be shipped for when we hit 10 subscribers. So let's hope we get there.
Yeah.
And now for some monoliths. All right. So, you want to tell us about what's going on?
Sure. So you probably have been watching the news and seeing this other story other than anything political or health related. And this came out right before Thanksgiving. This sculpture of a monolith appeared, and it was quite accidental. It was I guess geologists were doing a survey. They were trying to look at the bighorn sheep, and they were trying to survey and count them.
From a helicopter.
From a helicopter. And when they were doing that, that's when they first discovered the monolith. And this is in the desert in Utah. It's about 10 feet tall. It's got 3 sides. It's made of metal. They're suspecting that it's been there for several years. They actually went back and they looked at some satellite imaging, and it's right around 2015, 2016 that this was actually
like 4
installed.
or 5 years.
Yes, 4 or 5 years. And it's mysterious, and it's been attracting visitors while it was present. Where it came from, no one quite knows, but it's right there in the middle of the desert.
And so we decided, so this got a lot of press, okay? So this guy is in a helicopter, they're counting bighorn sheep. He looks down, sees this thing, and they're like, we got to go check that out. So they land, and they walk up to it, and they're looking at it, and he made some interesting references to what this could be, but they pondered over where it could have come from.
Right.
I don't want to give it away like what they said just yet, but it's an interesting thing just from the stand. Now, you had called it a piece of art the minute we started talking.
To me, it is a piece of art.
It is, but that's not where it started. Amanda says,
No.
Are visitors finding it now? I thought at first they were withholding the exact location. You are absolutely correct. They were.
We're going to go into that.
And we're going to get into that.
Minutes.
A couple of things all happened at once.
Yes.
So 4 days after it was put up and it hit social media and it hit the press and it hit the news, another one 4 days later appears in Romania, Carolyn. One shows up in Romania mysteriously on the exact same day that this one disappeared. Okay, so this one vanishes. Now, it had been there for close to 5 years, we found out. But then all of a sudden, when the press hits it, it's gone.
And it was like an overnight disappearance.
Right.
All that was left behind was the base
The plate.
and some tire tracks.
Yep.
And that was about it. So it's gone.
Well, and we know who took it away, actually. There was some documented, the person who took it away documented themselves taking it away, and then they made that public. And that actually created some fury, like a fair bit of fury, actually. And the reason for that is two guys who are into climbing sports, rock climbing, those sorts of things. Carolyn's like, here's another worldwide road trip idea. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I love that. The Large Glass Monolith Tour.
The Monolith Tour.
Yeah, this is a great road trip idea. And I honestly think, given the nature of the show and our sort of side reference to Dada and all those things, I think we should have a large glass monolith that we take with us and install.
Why, yes, that'd be really cool.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
But maybe by the time we get done with this show, you'll not want to do that, because
Yeah.
I think there's some, anyway.
There's a lot of things tied up into this too, and I think that comes to people taking credit or being the ones
Copycats.
Well, there's some of that, but this piece appeared on public lands.
Well, yes. So this gets back to why it was taken down, right? So these two guys who are rock climbers decide to come in at night with a couple of friends, dismantle it, and haul it out. Now, the reason they did it was they were worried that the onslaught of viewers that would show up to try and see this thing, that the park grounds just could not handle that. And there were people already coming. There were people with camera equipment. There
Yeah.
were people coming and shooting selfies, and and it was just starting to explode when, bam, 4 days later, it is gone. Yeah, Amanda says, I support that. I do too. But I think it should have probably been a cooperative effort between maybe some kind of archivist, maybe somebody who could have. They destroyed it, like they tore it apart and then hauled it out in pieces, which was kind of disappointing. That being said, I get why they took it away.
Yeah, I get why they took it away too.
Yeah, it would have been. And I think this is why we decided to talk about this tonight, is there's a lot around this in the realm of art and culture and our perceptions of things and what makes us tick. And I think this really drove that point home a little bit. And I know I have a lot to say about this tonight. I think you do too.
I do, but it's very vast and I hardly know where to begin.
I know there's so much.
There's so
Should we show
much.
another image?
Yeah, we can show another image.
Here's the one that showed up in Romania. Now, it is a little bit different. This one is, first of all, we have to say, this first one is fairly impeccably crafted. There are no visible seams. However, there were some pop rivet marks, I think, that were under the surface of the metal. So it was not super perfect. It was well crafted, but not perfect. The metal had a nice sheen to it. It was well polished. And, you wind up with this, mysterious metal three-sided object. Now, the one in Romania was about the same size, dimensionality-wise, tallness, width, but it had these circular marks in the surface of the steel.
Yes, like these squiggles.
Yeah, that's reminiscent of an angle grinder. So whoever it was decided to polish it with some kind of rotary tool, and that's what made that. I'm sure of it.
It looked handmade. Like it looked like somebody really did scribble on it.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to imagine a tool doing that, but I guess even if they're just using their free hand with this tool.
Yeah, it's when I saw it, it was instantly recognizable as that. But
Okay.
you can kind of freehand draw with one of those sanders.
Okay.
You can.
Okay.
So so we've got the Romania one that shows up 4 days later. This one was received much more with open arms. Right, the mayor of the city or the town
Yeah.
was like, well, maybe some alien kids that were misbehaving dropped it off here, but we welcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun mystery too, because when you go back to the one in the States and people were like, well, where did this come from? There was the claim that aliens brought it to Earth. So of course, that's an art project seems more plausible. But yeah, it was, talk about the reception was a little bit better than the United States.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And it gets even kookier than that. So then this one disappears after a few days as well. It goes away. And this one appears in California. That's our California wine. Now this one's the kookiest of them all. Let's put one in the river. Yes, Audrey, I actually thought about that.
You should.
I mean, I mean, it's not a hard piece to make.
Well, and you could do a big stone one too. It's they could be made out of all kind. Usually monoliths are stone.
Correct.
Like the real fundamental.
Like an obelisk.
Monolith.
Obelisk, which is not. Let's see. Are all.
The shape is a little bit different with the obelisk. It gets tapered towards the top. We were looking at this right before.
Yeah, so not all monoliths are obelisks, but I think all obelisks are probably monoliths. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we could do a monolith in the river. That'd be kind of fun.
We could. Okay, so this one, I don't have the video of this for you, but this one was quickly sabotaged by, well, I'm just going to say it. This bunch of paramilitary guys who wore night vision goggles, and while they were trying to push it over, they were chanting, "Christ is King." So that was interesting. And then it was promptly dragged down the hill. And in their social media, they said, "Oh, it's okay that we tore it apart. It was fun." Not so sure how I feel about that. Mm-hmm. But again, this whole project has really sort of brought to the surface a lot of interesting responses that, for what it's worth, I think it tells us a lot about who we are.
Yeah.
And then a metal fabricating shop in the same town this was put up in quickly rebuilt it and stuck it back up there and made it totally public that they were putting it in. They were like, you know what? It felt like this was the third one in a series. We want to make it right. They were pissed that somebody took it down. And so, bam, within a day,
oh my gosh,
they had one back there.
That's really cool.
So Carolyn's like, idiots. Yes, agreed. Thank you. Somebody in the chat got my thoughts on the money. So the where are we going with this? So a fourth one shows up.
Yes.
Right? And the fourth one is pretty much the final one that, I mean, there's been many more, right? Many more. But you start to look at the ones that are many more, and
they start to wonder the authenticity.
They're copycats.
Right.
And
who knows? Maybe these were copycats too.
I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know who created them or put them there or what world they were teleported from.
Right.
So
right. And so it's like, what world they were teleported from?
I'm not attributing it to any specific party.
I like that. You're just like, these came from somewhere.
These came from somewhere.
Well, we're going to speculate on where they came from. We're going to talk about some of the people that have laid claim to doing this. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about some of the copycats. We're going to talk about past monoliths, popular culture monoliths. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to be said. And there's some things about this that really make me ask questions about art in this country. Now, of course, this is not, we don't automatically label this as art. Mm-hmm. We do here on the show, right? And you might, because you're probably thinking about this as, an art installation of some sort that somebody decided to do, right?
Yeah.
But I think the rest of the world thinks this is something else. Mm-hmm. And that's what really, Mom says Dad made them. I know my dad is actually probably looking at the screen right now, looking at these going, well, if we had a break and we got the angle right, we could probably make that out of one sheet. He's like, he's taking it apart already. That's how my dad is. That's where I get it from. So anyway, I really want to talk about this side of culture and where we go with this stuff.
Yes.
Because you want to know what these are. I mean, let's just talk about these in this way. These are minimalist abstract sculpture. And if you walked into a gallery and saw a 3-sided triangular prism standing there, mirror polished, you'd probably walk, I'm not judging everybody here or making assumptions about everybody, but the average person in America would walk right by it, right? You might hear the occasional, "That's art," or the occasional, "Oh, my kid could make that." But this does not strike people as art. It strikes them as something else.
Right.
And I have a theory about that.
Okay.
But it is abstract minimalist sculpture, right?
Right.
I mean, it is.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Let's talk about a few other things here. First of all, this. You're like, I don't want to talk about this.
Well, my memories of this are from childhood and being a little girl and, but you you have more to say.
You didn't
about
find this to be the most easy movie to watch.
No, this was not easy as a 5-year-old kid.
No.
So,
Stanley Kubrick's movies are not easy for any 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, imagine watching The Shining at 5 years old.
no, oh gosh, no.
Okay, so this is from 2001, A Space Odyssey. And here is a perfect example of a well-known monolith showing up in a film. So I'm bringing some well-known monoliths into this discussion so we can kind of talk about how we receive these things and why we receive these things the way we do. So for those of you who have never seen this movie, we have this period of the film that is like sort of pre-dawn man, where these hominid creatures are hanging around, vying for territory over a water hole. Carolyn's like, not for a 5-year-old. No, exactly. They're hanging around a water hole. They get beaten out of their water hole, and they retreat to their cave structure. They wake up the next morning, and bam, this monolith is there, and they spot it, and they immediately are surprised and taken off guard by it. Okay, so an early hominid creature like this is recognizing that something is out of the ordinary, very much like this monolith was in the desert. Okay, and they freak out. They gather around it. They get a circle going around it as if it's some kind of like god-like thing, and they slowly approach it, and eventually one of them touches it, and then they are caressing it, and before you know it, they're all gathered around, and they're spending time with it, like and they calm down, right? The movie goes on. I'm not going to spoil the movie, don't worry, but the movie goes on. And this presence, this monolith, appeared as a catalyst to catapult the early hominid creature into what would eventually evolve into man. And so this sort of functioned as a powerful presence that helped them move forward. So in the next scene, or maybe 2 scenes, I don't remember, but not long after this, one of these ape-like creatures actually sees the skeleton of an animal. He realizes a bone can be used as a tool, and before you know it, we've created early tools, and they're advancing, right? So this is a symbol of a departure from a particular way into an advancement in humankind, and that's why this thing shows up. Yeah, it's alien in this case.
It is.
It didn't grow out of the ground. And some, California hotshot, slick Instagram artist didn't come and drop it down amongst the hominids. It just
appeared.
Right.
The most fascinating thing about monoliths to me is like, why are they fascinating? Like, seriously, they're just a big old plank sticking somewhere. Like, they're really not, they're really not that exciting. They really aren't. Doesn't matter where they are, but yet we make them exciting. There's something in our minds that makes monoliths really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And they're all over the world. I mean, we have several examples
We do,
of them.
But remember the context. And Sculptore is here. Good to see you, Sculptore. And Toothless Wither is here. Hello. Good to see you both. Sculptore says tool or toy, tool, weapon. Yeah. And they're all, sort of in that realm. But back to your point about how they're not that exciting.
They're not.
But I think it's about context. And we said this earlier. To me, some people might get upset at this, but to me, the Washington Monument is not exciting.
Right.
It is to you.
It is to me. Because when I look at the Washington Monument, and what are the materials? Like, all these monoliths are made of different things. Like, when you look at the monoliths that were popping up all over the desert in the past couple weeks, what is it made of? It's made of this reflective material that reflects the whole environment around it. And the way that it's in there, it reflects so much that if you're looking at it as like a 2-dimensional angle, it almost ties the whole scenery together, even though it's reflecting what's behind you.
Sure.
So there's this continuity that's vaguely sliced by this silvery, and it's not like, it is shiny and everything like that, but there's a haziness to it. It's not this clear-cut mirrored window. That's that. When I look at the monument in DC, it's marble. Marble is very grand, and you look at the Washington Monument and it's huge and it's tall and it always centers the city. Like whenever you're walking around the city, you know where you are by looking at the monument.
Sure.
So that to me was always like the pin on a compass.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that I'm not interested in that. When I say it doesn't excite me, it might not excite me like a similar structure might excite me in a different context. I think that's my point.
Okay.
Sculptore says in France, they're called menhors.
Ooh.
I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but that's a really, really interesting way. I like, even though I'm not exactly sure the exact translation of that word, it's a really, really interesting word in the context of what these things are. So, wow, so this is good. There's a lot going on. Pumpkin Audrey says something to worship. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Amanda says because it creates a void, resting place for contemplation. So, yes. Should I repeat that on the air? Terry's writing things that I'm not allowed to repeat on the air. Yeah, it's I think Sculptore would appreciate that you wrote that, but I'll leave it alone.
But the phallicness of it?
Well, you can't deny that.
Yeah.
No, I know, absolutely.
Okay.
But anyway, the unexcitingness of what you were talking about before, in reference to not the Washington Monument, but some of these other.
Well, in general, like because they're plain, they usually don't have much markings. I mean, when you think of obelisks, they typically have some kind of hieroglyphics or writing or something. And the one monolith that you pointed out with the squiggles, it has some kind of interest point. You know, it's got something to kind of hook your attention into it. The other ones, for the most part, are plain, unless there's the reflective. Okay.
Menhir.
Okay.
Sculptore says spell check menhir.
I like the other way better, but that's okay.
Yeah,
We'll keep going.
You're turning this into something else.
Okay,
which is good. I like the humor in that.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, and that's actually playing into what I'm thinking about here. So let's can we go back to 2001 for a second? Because I really think that this is going to kind of tie in.
Sure.
So just to kind of continue the narrative on 2001, A Space Odyssey, fast forward into modern day society, and during a brief space race, another monolith is found on the moon. And I'm not going to tell you the whole movie, but basically this functions as a pivot point in the movie for mankind's next vault into its next sort of evolution, right, into space. And these become symbolic of, exciting, they're alien structures, but they're also symbolic of this change. This departure.
Like civilization.
Yes. Well, not just civilization, but this departure from a known, right? And so that makes me think of, and I always talk about this, so if my students are out there, or if people who know me are out there, this is going to prompt a little bit of an eye rolling because I often run to this. But that makes me think about Joseph Campbell's myth and his understanding of myth and his understanding of the stories we tell, right, that we identify with, right? So one of those that one of the primary sort of archetypes that he talks about is the hero's journey. Okay, don't worry, this is coming back around to monoliths, I swear. So the hero's journey, according to Campbell, is the story that we tell ourselves over and over again. And I can plug every single movie you love into the hero's journey. The quintessential hero's journey that we could talk about just from a popular culture standpoint is Star Wars, right? So the hero's journey basically consists of three parts, right? Departure, fulfillment or transformation, and return, okay? This is what we all go through. When we're born, we depart our mother's womb. Our fulfillment, right? We come from nothingness, right? We depart that nothingness into something. The fulfillment is the tasks that we take on in our life to sort of make our life what it is. We transform. And then the return is kind of like that return to nothingness, right? It's the story of our life. Now in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker lives on Tatooine. He's an ordinary farmer and and he thinks his life is basically carved out for him. He wants to go to the academy and learn how to be a pilot, but he probably will never get there, right? And then what happens? Obi-Wan Kenobi hands him this object that object is something he's never seen before. That object defies and breaks the rules of everything he knows. And it is the call to depart. The rule set he knows, the life that he knows, everything he knows is embedded in that lightsaber. Or I'm sorry, everything he knows is going to change because of the presence of that lightsaber. It's like, this is different. This is the call. What does he do? He races home. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru have been killed by the stormtroopers who are looking for the very droids that he has. And he's like, I want to come with you and learn the ways of the Force. Boom, the departure. Now the fulfillment. Well, this is the part where we have the tasks. All right, we don't need to learn all about the hero's journey here, but we do need to know about the departure, because there is a call. There's a call. There's some event in any one of these stories that takes place that is the call to that place that you go that is unfamiliar, right? Yeah, so Star Wars is an obvious one, right? There are tons of obvious ones that are oftentimes in science fiction, but Mean Girls. Mean Girls is the hero's journey, right? For those of you who have seen Mean Girls. Babel is the hero's journey.
They all kind of are, aren't they? Harry Potter.
Harry Potter is the hero's journey.
Yeah,
we can keep going.
It's the same.
We tell ourselves
formula.
the same story over and over again. And what do we love about that? Well, we love all three of those points and the pivots that take us through them. Harry Potter lives under the stairs. Well, what happens? Hagrid comes to get him and takes him away. A total change of that life. Total change of the ordinary. In Mean Girls, she grows up on the African plains. Her parents are scientists, and what happens? This is kind of a reverse hero's journey, right? She gets taken from the exotic into the ordinary, but it works in reverse. Her parents move home. She lives in a Midwestern town with malls and mean high school girls, and she winds up going through trials, right? And she comes out of it a better person. She returns. All right, so the call is the lightsaber. The call is Hagrid's letter. The call is this monolith.
So it's like a beacon?
It's like a beacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this thing that says, my life is ordinary.
Yep.
And I'm invested in the stories that I identify with on a regular basis. I love to read the story of the hero's journey. I love to watch the story of the hero's journey, and I'm constantly on the lookout for that object,
that sign
that's going to take me away.
Yeah.
And so what do people do when they see one of these in the desert? Whoa. It's aliens.
Yeah. That becomes part of some kind of narrative.
It's no longer in a gallery surrounded by white walls. Yeah, aliens put that there.
Yeah. Well, that, and given the context, I think, of the time, the year and where we're at in life, I mean, people are looking for things like this a little bit.
You mean like a miracle?
Something to kind of take us away a little bit.
Ben says, hello, Todd and Terry. What did I miss?
A lot.
Well, Ben, to be exact, 38 minutes of talking about monoliths.
Monoliths.
The mystery of monoliths. We've got a little image up there of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I know you've seen. But, the other thing I think that is very telling here about this as art and our culture's way of handling this is we always have to assign a thingness to a thing that we don't. Whenever we encounter something new, we have to assign a thingness to that thing.
Right.
Because we are terrible at dealing with things that have no purpose.
Right.
We're terrible at it.
Right.
And that's why we're here to try and make the world better at that. I mean, 20 viewers at a time.
Yeah.
But we want to try and make the world better at that. So what happens? A metal box appears in the desert with no markings, no understanding, no nothing. And okay, great. If we're going to assign some kind of mysterious cosmic meaning to that, because we have to, okay. But what a beautiful thing in and of itself, this material that completely defies the landscape, that
it's man-made. It was purposefully placed there,
and it has a kind of presence there that helps to magnify. I don't necessarily think that landscape needs to be as pristine as everyone thinks is. No, I'm not going to put a strip mall there.
Right.
No, I'm not going to put a highway there. But putting a piece of art like that there, I think that art has the same impact at getting me to see nature as the nature does. It offers up an opposing view.
That's true. It's a contrasting
piece
that brings out the more rugged landscape
Right.
In contrast to this very refined, polished piece of
That connection point between the metal and the sand and the way that just sits there.
Yeah.
I feel like there are so many ways we could look at this thing
you can look
sticking
at
up
the
out there.
lines, how perfect the lines are and the right angles compared to the jagged landscape. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So some other monoliths around the world that have appeared and offer up this sense of strange mystery that we often...
Yes, and they're actually, monoliths tend to be a place of pilgrimage. People make journeys towards monoliths all the time, just like what you were saying with the hero's journey.
Yes. And so we have Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
And Stonehenge, I think, fits this perfectly because this is on so many levels an impossibility, right? And so what does it do? It breaks the rules. It breaks the rules of the known, right? And so we look at this with this, we're completely baffled, or not completely. There's plenty of theories floating around about how this came to be, but it really stumps us. And so where do we turn? We turn to these cosmic theories about alien space cultures and whatnot. Okay. But I also think that mankind is a infinitely fascinating, awesome at problem solving group of beings.
Yeah. And early abstractionists, it was the aliens.
Ben says it was the aliens. Mom says, so beautiful there in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, Mom, you've been there. Didn't you say the rocks were warm? Didn't you say that they had a warmth to them that seemed to defy... And I'm not trying to buy into the entire,
spiritual.
Yes, they were warm.
Yes, warm.
Well, spiritual I'll buy into on this one, right? I'm going to say that this was erected for some spiritual purpose. This was not erected to consider our bodies in nature and the relationship we have to the natural world.
I meant spiritual entity created.
Oh. Like the God hand came down and assembled the rocks.
Yeah.
I see.
Amazing feeling to just
ring in the solstice, I think. Yeah, I think you're right, Amanda. Mom says amazing feeling just to stand there. I'm sure. I mean, you are immediately aware of your scale and your size in the world. But again, this, like the other monoliths, breaks the rules, right? So there's another one we have that breaks the rules. And of course, this. Right, the Easter Island heads. Again, it's these elements that take us out of the context of our normal being, that sort of shift our way of looking at the world and thinking about the world. But my case that I'm trying to make here is this is art's job. This is what it's supposed to do. And oftentimes we overlook that when we're thinking about things like a painting on a wall that happens to be a simple monochromatic panel.
Right. Well, and the painting too, it's got controlled dimensions. You're just into that one space sometimes. I mean, with the abstract stuff, you can put it in a greater context, but sometimes the painting tells you what it is. These don't necessarily tell you what they are. They're very puzzling, just much like abstract art. Yeah, I think they do, and they don't tell you what they are. I mean, this one's more literal. The Easter.
No, I know that. But I think what I'm saying is that when we look at a sculpture, when we look at a physical object in the world that defies the rules, Stonehenge, the monoliths, even the Easter Island heads, they're breaking rules on many levels, maybe from materials and weight and physics and location and context. A painting has an established set of rules built into it.
Correct.
Dimension, surface, and so we can only allow it to
boundaries.
Yes. And so it's only going to break its rules so far, right? And so as the art viewing public, as we go out there, we have to kind of recognize that and say, okay, now we're in the game of painting. Let's shift into that mindset. And it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. It's easy when it's a picture of something we recognize. And this is what I'm getting at here, is this idea of if it's a thing I can do something with, and I can say, that's a house, that's a waterfall, that's a person bathing in the swimming pool. I got that. I can deal with that. All right. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Oh, yep, and there's the monument.
There's your monument.
Yes.
We got it.
It's huge.
Yes. So let's talk about some of the people that have been on the ticket for possibly creating these monuments.
Yes.
We got this guy.
So we have this guy. So
John McCracken, who passed away, a sculptor, a minimalist sculptor who passed away in 2011, he passed away in 2011. This monolith in the Utah desert was up in
2015 to 2016,
Correct.
somewhere around there. So it was years post-mortem that this appeared.
Right. So it's a stretch to connect this to him.
It's a stretch to connect this to him. Now, one of the reasons why, I mean, as you could see, the work mirrors the monolith. This is one of his pieces. I think this might have been the Davis Werner Gallery, but it might be
I think Werner
incorrect
is
on that.
his gallery, yeah.
Yeah. And what he would do typically is he would take, planks of wood made out of plywood, and he would find some kind of lacquer or resin and coat them. And he really loved the way that the planks interacted. They were grounded on the floor, and then they rose up into this atmosphere and interacted, and people would interact with them. They'd walk around them. They had these reflective surfaces. One of the reasons why, aside from looking similar to the monoliths out in the desert, his son, I believe his name is Patrick, had said that one of his fathers, he recalls his dad saying one thing he always wanted to do was just install something somewhere and people find it years and years later.
Well, John McCracken admitted to believing in aliens, and that was a driving force behind some of these pieces, and that he liked the idea of these things communicating in that way. But I want to just jump back for a second to talk about this.
Yes.
Surface.
Yes.
This is something I think that gets overlooked a lot when we go see a piece like this. We walk in and we want it to do something. We want to be able to connect this to the world in a way that has we can prescribe meaning, right? But oh my God, surface. Like you can't touch the works in the gallery, but you can get right up close to them. And when you start to see the sensuality of that surface, the treatment of that surface, the opacity or the translucency of that surface, it resonates and rings with you visually.
It becomes alive a little bit too, because
Yeah.
of that interaction too. It's very vital.
Yes.
And even looking at these pieces right here, the interaction between the colors and the surfaces, it looks like it's got a vibration to it.
Yeah, you can see a little reflectivity in there, and you can't really get the full picture from these. But I'm telling you, if you can sort of let go of that need to prescribe that meaning to these things, right, and just allow yourself to feel that surface. Don't physically feel the surface. You might get in trouble unless no one's looking. Then I would suggest maybe feeling it a little bit. But if you just allow yourself to sort of live in that space for a moment and the tactility of that, it's a beautiful thing. It does not have to have that kind of meaning associated with it. And here's some other McCracken pieces that I have just to kind of show you the similarity to the piece that we saw in the desert. Here's a mirror polished. I'm imagining it's mirror polished stainless or mirror polished aluminum.
And I love what it's doing with the outline of where the floor meets the wall too. Like the way that this photograph is taken, look at that, because it kind of breaks up the horizon line of the floor, which is really cool too. So there's all this interaction. You can look at this in a couple different ways. If you moved around the sculpture, you would see the lines changing and different things. You'd see yourself reflected in it. There's all these ways that you can interact with his monoliths.
Well, I remember as a child, I had a prism, a glass three-sided prism that I got at a science museum, and I was always fascinated with the way that broke light. Of course, it created these little cute rainbows on the ground, and that was fun. But when you looked through it the way it did what this does it through reflectivity, and that did it through a kind of refraction.
Right.
But it's really fascinating to see light break like that and images break like that. How did he do it? Yeah, well, I actually did a piece for a gallery. I used to do a lot of fabrication for galleries. And I did a piece for an artist at Gavin Brown Enterprises that was mirror polished stainless. And my dad's sitting back right now going, yeah, you did it. Okay. Anyway, mirror polished stainless is really, really hard to deal with from the standpoint of welding, from the standpoint of connections, and have it be genuinely untouched. It's very difficult because the polishing process can mar that surface so quickly, like, and non-recoverably. Here's a few more of the McCracken work. Love the Kusama cloudy reflective orbs on the floor at Zwerner. Yeah. And another one is I'm blanking. Okay. Well, at least it's the technology that's not crapping out. It's my brain. It'll come back to me. But yes, I totally agree. And I think there's a lot of people that work in this, you know, they really dig into that sensuality of the surface, that perfection of the surface. And it doesn't always have to be this kind of perfected surface. It can be a surface that is challenging in other ways.
I like this one especially because look at how you're facing it, but it still has the continuity of the landscape behind you, so that must be reflecting. But it also looks like a portal into another world, the way that it's slicing through that atmosphere like that.
And there we go with a reference. I love your reference of portal because, okay, portal is that, you know, we're kind of hearkening back to that fantastical element of aliens put this here. But from the standpoint of a piece of art, this opens a dimensional door into something else visually, right? In the landscape. And I think there is a connection between those two things. One sounds low, one sounds high, but they're similar. And I think the people that prescribe that meaning of aliens to these don't realize how close they are to the descriptive language, the understanding, the connection point to these as works of art. They just I think they need someone to be like, let me take your hand for a minute and show you the way. All right. So McCracken was one of the artists that's sort of on he's on the ballot as being a possible maker of these things.
And just to go back to McCracken for a second.
Let's go back to McCracken for a second.
One of the reasons why they did start to suspect that maybe he was the artist, even though I think David Zwerner Gallery actually tweeted something out that suggested it.
Correct. Well, they said, I can tell by the construction of this that this is absolutely a John McCracken.
Right.
He was a perfectionist, blah, blah, blah. And then there were some Instagram photos that came out that were closer up. And David Zwerner retracted that statement and said, no, this is definitely not a McCracken. It's not made the way he would have made it.
Okay. But I think they were the ones who initiated the whole rumor.
They even said Zwerner tweeted something or put on Instagram that piece in the desert was a portal right into their gallery, and they had the other end of the portal in the gallery.
Those silly guys.
I'm never getting a show at David Zwerner for that. All right, anyway.
Okay. So going to the next guy.
The next guy,
so this
maybe you should talk about this guy.
This doesn't look like... You're probably wondering what the hell is going on. Yeah. So this is by an artist named Matty Moe. And he actually started a conceptual group, an art collective known as The Most Famous Artists.
Yeah.
And Matty Moe and his group are actually taking credit for some of these, for the monoliths. And this is one of his pieces. So...
Can I just say something real quick?
Yes.
Ben mentions in the chats, he goes, that could be something from a Pink Floyd album. He's talking about the Monolith piece that we just saw.
Oh.
And I kind of agree.
Yeah.
Right? That's you know, there's a connection there, but that's a whole other avenue to go down. But I like the reference.
Yeah,
I like the reference.
Yeah.
All right, so Matty Moe and The Most Famous Artist, we'll put that in quotes, because you know what really drives me nuts is if you Google The Most Famous Artist, right? This little line of little icons of artists appears at the top of the page, and it used to give you Picasso first. Not that Picasso had its problems, but of course he was brilliant also. But now this guy Matty Moe appears in front of Picasso because he has so overused all of the various, you know, bot engine grabbing,
blockchain and all that.
Right. So Matty Moe created this environment. It looks like a private jet. It's not a private jet. It is in fact a stage set. And it's set up in places where you can go take selfies of yourself looking like you're in your private jet.
Yeah.
If the FedEx truck with your barf bags hasn't arrived yet at your house, we sent those out to subscribers. Just it should be there soon. Just hold out.
And this came out in 2018. It was actually called the Private Jet Experience, and it showed up at Art Basel in Miami. So
yeah, I mean, I say that thing about the barf bags. I don't really mean that. I think there's something really interesting about this.
There is.
Well,
he capitalizes a lot upon the Instagram and digital media and how it influences artwork and how things get out there and how it makes artwork. And
if you want to be seen as an artist, if you want to be seen, you need to think about your audience and what is, you go to the MoMA, you go to the Met, not now, obviously, but a year ago, if you went to the MoMA or the Met and you looked at how much time people spend in front of a work of art, it is a fraction. It is, well, I think there was a study done on it. It's somewhere in the vicinity of between 2 and 3 seconds.
Wow.
Okay, seconds that they spend with a work of art on average. Now, when they're in that space for that 2 or 3 seconds, they're usually taking a photo of it or taking a selfie with it, if they're allowed to, and then looking at it on their screen as they walk away. So if you are an artist and you'd like to get you want to be seen, what do? Well, you play into your audience's behavior.
Yes.
And so here is a perfect opportunity for you to take a selfie. Well, people are lining up to sit in the jet.
Yeah.
So Matty Mo was asked, because he's done a couple of other stunts like this.
Yes.
And we don't have examples of those to show, unfortunately, or fortunately. But he's the type of guy who could be, if you're trying to think about who's pulling this stunt off, he's the type of guy. So he gets asked, is this you? Is this the work of the most famous artist? And he said back to them, I'm not saying that I made this, and I'm not saying that I didn't make it.
Right.
What I am saying is that I'm capitalizing on the behavior. Do you have it written down?
I do. Well, what he did was he posted something on it. It was an Instagram post taking credit of the 3-sided monolith. And it quotes, it was authentic dimensions and museum quality materials, edition of 3+1 artist proof, delivery and installation included, blockchain certificate of authenticity, signed and dated, the most famous artist 2020, delivery is 4 to 6 weeks. And he was selling them for $45,000.
So he put them up on his website. $45,000.
He basically appropriated it.
He appropriated the frenzy within seconds of it appearing, had a fabrication facility building them and selling them on his website for $45,000, and he immediately posted that they were sold out.
Yeah.
So,
but that's kind of what Matty Mo does. He appropriates, and he, and it kind of goes into the whole Marcel Duchamp, that is, Andy Warhol, and changing the meaning, and like some of his other famous works was like when he would take the paintings and he would repaint over them and call them his own.
Right. We see this a lot.
And that's one of the ways, the dollars, what was the name of that one? I think I have that.
Well, he turned the Hollywood sign.
$100,000 where he had stacks of money.
Right.
That was a really cool.
So I don't have an image of this, but I'll try to describe it to you as best I can. He took these Instagram photos of fat stacks of cash wound with a band, like the type of paper band you see coming from the bank. On the top, there was a $100 bill. On the bottom, there was a $100 bill. In between, there were genuine notes of currency.
It was currency.
But they were not $100 bills.
You didn't know what it was.
It was random.
Yeah.
And they were sold for $5,000 a piece, right?
$515? I can't read my writing.
They were either $5,000 or $15,000 a piece.
Yeah, actually, I think it was $5,000 a piece.
But in the certificate that he provided with that, he said that if the band was broken, they were no longer a valid art object and would just become currency. So my guess is, and what an interesting way to look at the art world for a minute. Some collector is going to drop $15,000 on a stack of money. They're basically trading $15,000 for an unknown quantity of cash
Right.
that's wrapped with a paper band that
Yeah.
says, this is it. Now, this goes back to Duchamp, right? And it's, well, if I say this is art, it's art. And the value of art is determined by the market of art and how that market is controlled,
Right.
right? And so currently the OPEC of the art market is the galleries and their sort of way in which they deal. That is a topic for another show.
That is a topic for another show.
But this guy, this Matty Mo guy and the most famous artist he's one to wrestle with.
He
Right?
is.
He's really one to wrestle with. He's clever.
Very clever.
Do I think he made this monolith? No. Do I think John McCracken made this monolith? After what Zwerner said?
I don't know. It's so similar to his work. It could be one of his monoliths, but maybe his son had something to do with it because the age is different.
Carolyn Thau says, check out Mr. E. Works with money as well. Yeah, Banksy did it too. Banksy created £1 million of currency that has Princess Diana on it.
That's true.
Which is...
Yeah. Well, he did a couple different banknotes with different figures on them.
Like Manzoni's cans of poop. Yeah, exactly. And so many others. I have upstairs, and I'm going to absolutely bonk on this. Shoot, I should go grab it out of the drawer. I'm not going to leave you sitting here alone.
Is it the...
It is a Fluxus artist. I'm trying to now remember. I have a piece of a Fluxus artist's work in my collection that I cannot remember his name. That's pathetic. I should be better than that. I'm here talking about art and I can't remember the name of an artist in my own collection. And here's the really interesting thing. I sold him the copyright to my own DNA.
Oh.
But when I say I sold it to him, I paid him to sell it to him. So here's how it works. His art piece was a certificate that he owned the copyright information to my genetic material, right? And in order to get that, which is both signed and fingerprinted, I think both of our fingerprints are on the document, and I think I paid $150 to have this done.
Wow.
So it's kind of an interesting thing, but it's like these plays on what has value. And the funny thing is I bought that piece more than 25 years ago, before I was like, sign away the rights to my genetic information. When the hell am I ever going to need that?
Yeah.
I might need that really soon.
Yes, you might.
I might need to get CRISPR to, kind of alter my, do you know what CRISPR is?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
CRISPR's been in the news lately too. Look it up.
Okay.
It's
I
a
will.
genetic altering machine that changes. It actually is having significant results in changing sickle cell anemia.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
By altering a person's genetic material on the micro level and having positive results. It's absolutely
That's
brilliant.
fantastic.
And so
That's
if
good
that
news.
comes out as a valid mode of medicine, which I think it is already.
Right. No, I think that's great. That's a awful disease. So
Yeah, agreed. So, yeah, I think all of this ties in. And I think, I love what the presence of these monoliths is doing for us culturally. We're
I do
talking
too.
about
We're
this.
talking about them. And even though, I remember when I first saw this story up around November, I was like, what? Who? But now, it's been weeks later, and these things are still popping up. And it's like you said, they're beacons. They're giving us something else to look at, something else to look forward to. One of the most fascinating things about them is just as much as they were discovered, they vanished.
Right.
That is equally as fascinating. The one in Utah, we're still like, wow, where'd it go? How did it get there? And these are all...
Yeah, and I think that, the part of me, and that's why I wanted to do this show tonight, part of me wants to say to the viewing public that's wrapped up in this momentarily, and it is dying off now, wants to say, whoa, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, aliens, cool, but let's just think about how art impacts our lives and the lives of everyday culture for a minute and look at this from that standpoint, just for a hot second, because it deserves that. And now we're seeing that it probably originated from that space.
Yeah.
And my take on all of this is that the presence of that thing in that unnatural setting breaks the rules that we understand as the day-to-day norm. And by breaking that rule, we are shifted into something different perceptually, right? That's art's job. That's what it's supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to be out there looking for. We're not supposed to be looking to see if we see a chicken in the Jackson Pollock. Not that that's a bad thing, but how do these things that we go to on a daily basis, hopefully on a daily basis, change the ways in which we look at the world because the lens of the norm shifts? That's what its job is. That's what I love about it. And when I saw these, I was like, and Scultore, who's out there in the chat room right now, we had he sent me something. He's like, did you see this? And I was like, yeah. And it was just like, his comment was, what a strange world. And I was like, yeah, but that's what makes it fantastic.
That is what makes it fantastic.
There are so many people that want to just shift that slider knob on the mixing board into normal.
Right.
And never break out of that.
But isn't this one of the most beautiful things about these monoliths? We don't know. We don't know what they are. We don't know what but they are. They are what they are, and it's really fun. And it feels good to just appreciate them and their existence, and to look at them and to try to, connect with them and their place in the world.
Yeah, I look at them. I mean, okay, I look at them, there's a lot of copycats going up now, but I look at them just as a reminder to say, take a step back and allow something different to enter your space for a moment and consider it on as many levels as you can. Because that's, I think, what this is. And I think whoever put that out there, that was what they wanted.
I think that's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll cause all kinds of stir and controversy, but ultimately we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So, is that bringing us to the end of our show tonight?
I think so.
This was fun.
This was fun.
We
didn't show any videos. We didn't have a reading. We kind of...
No reading, no videos.
We just kind of went to the monolith.
We have a cool show next week.
We do have a cool show next week.
With the holidays approaching.
Yes. And... Go ahead.
No, you. And New Year's.
Well, New Year's too, but next week's show is kind of holiday oriented.
Yes. And you tell them.
Well, we're going to be doing a giveaway.
A cool
giveaway.
So can I tell them? Can I tell them?
ahead.
It was Terry's idea. It was totally Terry's idea. But we're going to look up the catalogs of several of the artists that we've featured on this show. Okay. And as long as those catalogs are available, we're going to do a raffle in next week's show that gives away one of those catalogs. If you win the raffle, you get to pick which catalog you win. So, if you want to do Alex Gross's cabinet cards, that one's going to be on there.
That one is fantastic. I love that book.
We have that book, and it's gorgeous.
Yep.
So this is going to be a nice gift from us to you for supporting us for so long and hanging out. We are on episode 14.
14.
I feel like every time we marvel at that number, I'm like, where did last week go?
I know.
Weren't we just here?
We were.
But we're going to give away one of those catalogs. So that is super exciting. So definitely join us and spread the word. The other thing we're going to do is in the following week, which will be the week between Christmas and New Year's. Number one, we have a really cool surprise for you. Number two, we're going to do a giveaway that is only for people who are sharing our information on their social media feeds. So I'm going to be watching. So if you share us on Instagram, make sure you put that post at _large glass. Okay. You put that in there. I am adding your name to that raffle. That's going to be a special giveaway. Okay. So grab your social media, post about us. We want some people to follow us. We want to get the show going. We want people to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love all of you, but we want more. So, are we good?
We're good.
Wait a minute. I need a little bit to toast with.
Oh.
Little Malbec, little California Malbec.
This was fun.
This was fun. This was good. Yeah.
It was good.
So go make a monolith. We want to thank all of our followers and subscribers. We want to thank you guys for watching. And we will see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Take care.